questions will undoubtedly be asked about Israel's strategy here, won't they?
I don't know. I think the strategy is very clear. Hamas launched a genocidal invasion of Israel, and now Israel is defending itself by going after Hamas. Hamas has positioned itself in tunnels that it has dug under civilian neighborhoods. So Hamas has taken a strategy of endangering their own civilians, but under international law, that does not protect them or immunize them from being attacked in those tunnels, as Israel did yesterday.
Eugene, welcome back to Talk Today. Good to have you on. And I find myself in the same position on an hourly basis, trying to make sense of this to the people who are watching and listening and simply report facts. What happened overnight is part of war. I accept that. And I absolutely 1,000,000% accept the Israeli people and government going after an organisation that carried out, and I'm going to keep saying this, some of the most heinous acts ever seen. Think back, ladies and gentlemen, think ISIS and think beyond that. You don't behead babies, and I'm sorry, I know it's 8:15 in the morning. You don't do. We were hearing about that girl whose skull was found. I think the point Nick's trying to make, Eugene, I think it's a very relevant one, is there has been widespread global support for a country whose very origin was being attacked, whose very people across the world have had to face anti-Semitism on an unprecedented scale. What I think we're asking is, as this continues, Netanyahu's saying this is war. I get that. War is horrible. As this continues and the humanitarian crisis becomes ever more prevalent, questions will be raised. Do you believe as a people, as an Israeli people, that the global support will be retained? Do you feel that you will have to make sacrifices, or will you continue in this aforementioned way and expect the world to stand with you? That's really, I think, the question, Eugene.
I think the world should stand with Israel because Israel is conducting itself according to the international law. And to turn on Israel because Hamas has hidden itself in tunnels under civilian neighborhoods is basically to say to Israel, you're allowed to defend yourself. We support you in defending yourself, but not in any way that is effective and can actually get at the enemy. It is essentially to throw a life vest, to throw a lifeline to Hamas and say, so long as they violate the laws of war, international public feeling will prevent Israel from doing its job, from finishing off Hamas. At the same time, I think Israel, wants the support of the international community, but in the end, that's not the be-all and end-all for Israel, right? Israel is facing an enemy that wishes to torture its entire population to death and has set about doing so. Given those stakes, right, in the end, Israel is going to pick its own safety, its own basic survival over international opinion.
Eugene, you're a human rights lawyer. What about the safety and basic survival of the Palestinian people, the people who are distinct from Hamas, the people who are victims of Hamas across in the Gaza territory? What are their rights right now? They've been asked to move from the north to the south. There are hundreds of people living in very small, confined areas. What about their right to food, to fuel, to water? Where do you stand on that?
So I'll just tell you what international law says about that. International law does not say that one has to give one's enemy state supplies. It does say that in a situation of siege, humanitarian supplies have to be allowed in very limited categories. Israel is allowing much more than that in, and only if there's not a threat of diversion to the enemy forces. And we know Hamas has plundered UN warehouses. Hamas has stolen fuel. We know that the threat of diversion is real. And so I would say, the rights of Gazans certainly include refuge and seeking safety and seeking shelter, including in neighboring countries. And I would say in every single conflict, did we say to Ukrainians, the millions of Ukrainians who fled that conflict, you have to stand and die in Ukraine? To Syrians who fled, you have to stand and die in Syria. And one of the reasons this humanitarian situation is so severe is because Hamas is reportedly shooting people who are trying to escape the conflict or not letting them leave. And Egypt has sealed the border. Egypt has just pulled up tanks at the border, presumably to push back forcibly Gazans who choose to leave. Those Gazans have a right under international refugee law to flee the conflict. And in every conflict in the world, that right is entertained. What's causing this situation is that they're being bottled up for political purposes.
Eugene,
Can
I jump in, because this is just in actually on X, which was previously Twitter, from James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary of Great Britain. The Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza is expected to open Wednesday. The Rafah crossing will open today for a first group of foreign nationals. UK teams are ready to assist British nationals, Eugene, as soon as they are able to leave. It is vital that life-saving humanitarian aid can enter Gaza as quickly as possible. Can you answer something for me? Because one of the things that we see on a daily basis, certainly doing this programme, is it's played out on social media, what's right, what's wrong, what's happening. That horrible situation with the bombs, 500 people allegedly killed several weeks ago, is a testament to not really knowing what to believe. Explain to me, you're a lawyer, why, if there's a border, why is it not happening? Why is humanitarian aid not getting through? Is it because Hamas is deflecting this? Are Egypt playing God? Is it Israel? What's going on there, Eugene? I don't understand that.
So trucks carrying humanitarian food are now crossing the border. I think there have been several hundred trucks crossing the border. I'm very skeptical that Hamas will allow anything important to reach the people, but humanitarian aid is getting through. Egypt does not want to open the border in the other direction. That is to say, to allow Gazans to seek safety and to allow Gazans to get out.
And Eugene, just quickly, you were talking earlier about the supplies that were going in and out of Gaza, that Israel doesn't necessarily have the responsibility to provide water to its enemies. But isn't Gaza in a much more unique situation than the other examples that you gave, in that it is absolutely, and has been for a long time, dependent on Israel's supply of fuel and water?
So certainly not. Gaza gets only 10% of its water piped in from Israel. This dependence is also a dependence of choice. Gaza has desalinization plants. They could make more. Gaza can make more electrical plants, but they've chosen to invest it all into a multi-billion-dollar network of Hamas tunnels. And the question is, should those choices that their government, Hamas, made now make it impossible for Israel to conduct itself as any ordinary military would, and conduct a regular military operation aimed at military targets?
Eugene, final question. There's big debates here politically between the opposition party and the government about a ceasefire. People are calling for humanitarian pauses. Somebody said to me this morning, it's all well and good to call for a ceasefire, but would Hamas, I mean, the aggressor, does it show weakness? Would they follow that? A ceasefire's, that's not going to happen in Israel's mind, is it?
Hamas would observe a ceasefire so long as it is useful for it and so long as it allows it to regroup and disarm. And what a ceasefire essentially means is Israel must allow Hamas to occasionally raid its territory, massacre, mutilate, and torture to death its citizens, and then, be able to cry uncle and not be removed from power. That is essentially allowing for Hamas to exist as a genocidal program against the Jewish people.